What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, where for today's video, boy, is there a lot to discuss when it does come down to the world of Transformers. But first of all, I do want to very quickly apologise in the delay in getting this video out. Recently, I did take a vacation, so pretty much missed Pulsecon in its entirety, but I am now back with a bang, and to be honest, guys, I think we can all agree in saying that considering that it was the 40th anniversary for Transformers, Pulsecon was incredibly lackluster. But more on that later, because firstly, I want to jump into a very controversial topic, which is kind of a mix between both mainline and third party. So towards the beginning of this year, we finally saw the long-awaited listing that in 2025 we are going to be getting a leader class Studio Series 86 Megatron, I guess to pair alongside the pretty wicked Commander class Optimus Prime, and almost instantly the age-old discussion erupted on whether or not he would transform into his original G1 blaster, or of course a tank that we have been seeing more frequently when it does come down to mainline G1 Megatron toys, where we finally now have official confirmation, as I state from the designer himself. I will confirm that Studio Series 86 Megatron, when we do get to him, will be a tank. So there you go, guys. Unfortunately, we are not seeing the return of the iconic Walther P38, considering all of the legalities Hasbro would have to jump through. If they did decide to go with a blaster for Megatron's alt form, I imagine that it would have to be incredibly stylized. And to be honest, recently we have seen some pretty banging G1 Megatron figures that can transform into a tank. More recently, the Robuson Megatron, which I thought was actually a great balance between kind of the old and the new, but now is where the third-party company Newage come in, as they recently dropped images for their NAS01 Romulus, which is a Chug G1 scale Megatron. First of all, I just want to say to you guys that for the longest time, I have been praying that these third-party companies would release almost masterpiece engineered figures that could pair alongside the likes of the War for Cybertron, the Legacy, and the Studio Series figures, and they finally appear to have answered our prayers. And it only gets better, because the second that you do spin this Megatron around to the back, this looks so much nicer in comparison to Takara Tomi's masterpiece. And when you do consider that when it does come down to scale, this is no bigger than a Voyager class, I think again that is seriously impressive from a design standpoint. Not to mention that this does include way more accessories than you would get from a leader class figure. So for example, there are 3 interchangeable face pieces, all of which look banging. He will also include the Cybertronian blaster, which we do see him use in the 86 movie, as well as the now iconic Mason chain and that lightsaber, which again we do see him use as he is throwing it down with Optimus Prime. But now let's get into easily the money shot of this release, that being the alt mode, because this guy does transform into a terrific, very Walther P38 accurate gun mode, and this truly is the icing on the cake. I think this may just go down as being easily one of the best selling third party products, because for someone like myself, this is a mainline fan's dream. Now when it does come down to stacking this guy up against some actual mainline releases, first of all we have him compared alongside the myth, the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime. Now I do believe this is likely to be the figure that this Megatron was always intended to scale with, because much like some of the Hasbro Transformers, these third party products take years to develop, which is why unfortunately right now he doesn't appear to stack up all that well against the actual 86 Optimus Prime. It does just seem to be slightly off. Megatron appears to be a little too small, but you know what, I still think you could make it work. Here is how he compares alongside both Soundwave and Shockwave, and yeah, I think he looks pretty damn terrific. Here he is stacked up alongside the Stunticons, and so far I am incredibly impressed. We also don't have to wait too long for this bad boy to come out, because right now he is scheduled to release in October of next month. So I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. What do you guys think of not only Newage dipping their toes into mainline scale releases, but between what we do know so far in regards to the actual official Studio Series 86 Megatron and this Newage Romulus, which is the one that you guys are more than likely going to pick up? Blasting our way through the multiversal portal now to check out some of the Pulsecon 2024 reveals, Hasbro finally dropped the 5th and final wave of Transformers Legacy United, and it does primarily consist of repaints and repacks. Now while some of these figures are really deserving of a reissue, I can't help but feel that for the 40th anniversary, not only was this lineup incredibly lackluster, but there was definitely a better way to get these characters back out there. For example, I think it would have been better had they distributed all of these figures across the past 12 months months. For example, we've seen pointless reissues such as the Legacy Strongarm, even more recently with Metal Hawk. I think instead they could have swapped those characters out with these, which are most definitely more deserving of a reissue than they were. But let's jump into it. So first of all, unfortunately, they did not reveal the long-rumoured core class Beast Wars Dinobot, nor the deluxe class G1 Sure Shot, so I'm not quite sure as to whether or not they may be saving them for the next trilogy, or if they've been cancelled entirely. If they have been cancelled, much like we did see from the Velocitron Hot Rod, then that is going to suck ass, because especially in the case of Sure Shot, I was really looking forward to getting a brand new version of that character into the collection. But let's get stuck into what they did actually reveal. So, seeing a reissue first of all will be the Transformers Legacy, previously Velocitron exclusive, Deluxe Class Cosmos, an incredibly difficult figure to track down, especially for those of you in the States. This is a great second opportunity in getting what has to be one of the best mini-bots back into your collection. And another thing I want to ask you guys is whether or not maybe you would like to see some remakes, some re-reviews of some of these older figures. For example, there are figures that are almost 5 years old when it does come down to their release, and their reviews on my channel are most definitely outdated. The next figure is a G2 Universe breakdown. So we've been slowly but surely seeing Hasbro trickle these G2 Stunticons out there. It looks cool, but to be quite honest guys, I can't say that I have any attachment to G2 whatsoever, and don't really fancy forking out well over $200 to have a kind of wacky looking Menasor. The next reissue is a Deluxe Class Origins Bumblebee. Now this one I was honestly quite surprised to see reissued, considering I don't remember him being all that difficult to track down when he was first released. But it has been now roughly 3 years, and since then we recently saw the release of the Origins Wheeljack, which is a direct companion piece to this figure. So the fourth and final deluxe that we are going to be seeing for Legacy United is the long-awaited Armada Universe Wheeljack, which also is a repaint, but I think is easily still one of the standouts from these reveals, as we finally now see that shattered glass sideswipe fully redecoed to resemble how he originally appeared in Armada. It is just a shame not to see the inclusion of a minicon. I really don't think it would have been asking too much. But now we jump into the Voyagers. So first up, we now have a long-awaited reissue, that in the form of the Earthrise Voyager class Ramjet, and it is pretty sweet that they are slowly but surely getting the Coneheads back out there. After the release of this guy, we now only need Thrust, and the trio will be complete. So for those of you who did miss out on these first time rounds, again, this will be a fantastic second opportunity. Which, speaking of, the next Voyager class will be the Comic Universe Tarn. Leaping over into the Victory Universe, much like Cosmos, a long-awaited Velocitron exclusive is finally seeing a second run, that in the form of the Leader class Triple Changing Galaxy Shuttle. Now, out of all of these reveals, this is definitely the one that I want to re-review the most, just because I don't believe my original review was quite up to scratch. So for those who would like to see that, definitely be sure to let me know down below. But this is a pretty solid figure. Personally, I've always been a huge fan of the Astro Train mold, and to see it repainted and slightly retooled into a Victory character that is now in the main line, I think is really awesome, and I can only hope that more of these Victory Universe characters can find their way out of being kind of HasLab exclusives and being full-blown mainline releases. And then finally, rounding things off for Transformers Legacy United entirely, we have the Leader class Triple Changing Overcharge, which is a very minor retool of the Legacy Blitzwing in the sense that he does have a brand new head sculpt, but this character is super obscure to the point where I can't help but feel as if though maybe he would have been better fitted had it been a Generation Selects release. But you guys let me know down below, what do you think of the fifth and final wave of Transformers Legacy United? Like myself, whilst you may be glad to finally see some of these figures reissued, were you hoping for maybe some slightly new characters, especially as again, it is the 40th anniversary? Sound off below and let me know. And then finally, as a tease for what we can expect towards the end of the year, they also officially confirmed the title for the next trilogy, which will be Transformers Age of the Primes, which if you are like myself and have been scrutinising some of the leaked listings for 2025, you will agree in saying that that is a perfect title, as that line does appear to be solely based around the original 13. Now, changing gears over to my bread and butter, Hasbro also dropped 3 additional reveals for Transformers Studio Series. This is of course to coincide with the release of the upcoming Transformers 1 animated movie, and these 3 brand new characters are a pretty big deal. So firstly, we finally saw a Deluxe Class Studio Series Bumblebee / B127, or of course, as we fans are going to be referring to him as,
Badasatron!
And this actually looks really neat. Now, before we jump into the images themselves, the first thing that I took away the second that I did take a look at these images was that I'm pretty certain in the future we may see this guy retooled into B-127 based on the Bumblebee movie. Because let's all face it, that figure unfortunately was kind of kibble ridden. The design between this to B-127 in the B movie is very similar, and this appears to be definitely the superior version. For the most part, I think they've managed to kibble fantastically. This appears to be incredibly slim, again to match the actual CG design, and I really do like what I see, especially as we check out the leg design. Unlike the mainline release, which was incredibly hollow, these things appear to have been mostly filled in front side to back. I also quite like the amount of accessories that this Bumblebee will include. For example, in addition to a tracker blaster, this guy will include not one but two stinger blasters, as well as the iconic knife hands, which we have seen this guy slice and dice up his opponents with again in that most recent trailer. The only thing which at the moment I'm not the biggest fan of would be the chest. Much like the Gamer Edition War for Cybertron Bumblebee, just judging by these CG renders, it does appear to hang a little too low, kind of giving B an inbuilt beer gut, but again, I will reserve my judgment for when I actually get this guy in hand. And as we flip over to the Cybertronian based vehicle mode, to be quite honest guys, Hasbro very rarely messes these up, and I do think that this too is no exception. This appears to look sharp, again, very similar in design to that B-127 from the B movie, which is why I personally wouldn't mind seeing this retooled into that design. And then we turn to the second reveal for Transformers Studio Series, and I think I was more excited for this character in comparison to Bumblebee, just as when it does come down to the actual mainline, she unfortunately appears to have been completely sidelined, which is crazy considering that the four main characters appear to be Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Megatron, and of course Elita 1. So here she is as a full-blown Studio Series figure, and to my surprise she is not just a simple retool of the B-movie RC, which again is a fairly similar design to this. This appears to be a complete brand new mold, and to be honest guys, I think she looks all the better for it. The details, especially when it comes down to the head and the chest, are on point. The only part of this which I honestly can't say at the moment I'm too crazy about would be the kibble just kind of hanging off the back of the elbows. They do kind of stick out like a sore thumb, especially again considering the design appears to be so slim in the movie, but still the tracker blaster I think is looking pretty awesome, and judging by this CG render, it also appears as if though she will include a jetpack, which again is something that we have seen from the most recent teaser trailer. When it does come down to her Cybertronian bike form, much like Bumblebee, this appears to be bang on to the movie. This looks so sick. I've always been a huge fan of Cybertronian base forms, and this one is no exception. Very Tron Legacy inspired, especially in terms of the slick curves. This thing looks awesome. Then turning to the third and final reveal for the Transformers 1 Studio Series lineup, this may just go down as being the best and by far saved Pulsecon for myself. We finally have our first official look at the TF1 Studio Series Voyager class Sentinel Prime. So the first figure released for the Studio Series line for this movie that is not a deluxe class, and I think it absolutely shows, because not only is this guy packing a shit ton of inbuilt gimmicks, but the robot mode looks fantastic. This really does appear to be a pretty big improvement in comparison to the very decent deluxe class. I think the robot mode looks so cool, very Transformers animated inspired when it does come down to the color scheme, but this is only one out of 3 modes this guy's packing. The second would be a full-blown weaponized mode for Sentinel Prime, which if you checked out the movie you will know is something that he does use in the film, and I'm actually really interested to check out the functionality of this. The face piece appears to be completely different in comparison to the regular form. You can also see there are some additional missile pods which will pop out of the side of the legs. The shoulders also appear to have some kind of inbuilt blasters, and I really like how the forearm can fully transform into an inbuilt arm cannon. So to say this was a surprise I think is a complete understatement, because I just was not expecting them to engineer something like this into a Voyager class figure. But that's not all, because this guy has one third and final mode, that being the Cybertronian jet form. Now this isn't actually a spoiler, I was able to recently check out the movie and can't quite remember if we ever do see Sentinel transform, so if that is something you guys were able to catch, be sure to let me know down below. So I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is to the movie, but considering that the deluxe class version transformed into something which was very similar to this, I am led to believe that this will be pretty spot on to that CG render. This really is looking to be by far the best Transformers 1 Studio Series figure, and that pretty much wraps up Pulsecon in its entirety and this video. I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. Out of everything discussed today, what are you most excited for? I want to thank you guys all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!